hour. Right now, let me get to Illinois Congressman John Shimkus calling us from our nation's capital. Congressman, how are you?
Mark, I'm doing great. A little tired. 27-and-a-half-hour markup. But I kind of laid it out for you a couple days ago, and we're still on track.
So I understand that during your Energy and Commerce Committee meeting, you had an exchange with a congressman from Pennsylvania. For some reason, the Washington Post picked this up and made a big deal out of your interaction with him over some of these things that were mandated by Obamacare that this American Health Care Act would get rid of.
That's correct. Yeah.
I don't even understand why it was a controversy.
Well, it depends on if you believe that government's more better to determine the type of policy you should buy or whether the individual is. And it's been quite it's been quite the eye opener. I mean, we've been marking up. We had votes last night, and then I got up votes. I'm going to the airport, so I haven't really followed the brouhaha other than my staff saying, "Hey, you've got a lot of attention." But I think the average Midwesterner would understand. If you believe in markets and competition and choice, if you want to have lower insurance prices and higher quality, people should be able to buy the type of insurance that they can use, not the type of insurance that the government thinks they need to have. And the example was a 24-year-old male not married. Should he be required because of federal law to have maternity coverage in his personal plan? And I think people would say, well, that'd be crazy. Why would that? Or, why would a 23-year-old woman going on the individual market be required to have, prostate coverage in her health care plan? It's pretty simple.
Yeah, it seems pretty simple to me. And, of course, the people on the left, the ones that brought this up, are claiming that, well, we shouldn't have to pay for your Viagra either. But that wasn't mandated in Obamacare, was it?
They shouldn't. But
I agree.
That's a government program. I think they're referring to Medicare, and I would agree with that. But if a doctor says if a doctor prescribes it under Medicare, then that should be afforded. But this is different. We're talking about the individual health care market. Or just take a couple 63 years old. Should they be required to purchase child care, as part of their health package? Of course not. It's really crazy.
It is crazy. I wanted, when I saw that this morning, I'd reached out to someone on your staff, Jordan, and said, well, I'm happy to have the congressman on just because I agree with him completely. And I think it's a completely legitimate question, particularly given what's at stake here. And as I thought that Speaker Ryan, who I've had my differences with on policy, did a masterful job yesterday in his PowerPoint presentation to the media explaining what the AHA does and what it doesn't do, which is what even the conservatives who were opposed to it, I hope some of them watched that because I think it answered a lot of questions.
Again, what we want to do is, what in the individual market, what Obamacare did says you can only buy one of these four policies, and these policies have to have X in it. And so they are, and what people are finding out, they're paying more and getting less. So they really don't have insurance because they can't pay the deductible. So we have to free the markets, have more choices, and let the insurance companies worry about getting the young, healthy males at 24 because they can purchase an insurance plan and that's affordable, and let them adjust that actuary to make sure you can cover the sick, elderly in the overall actuary market of the health insurance. What we're trying to do is drive the young, healthy citizens into the market, and they only do that if they can buy affordable care because most of them are just starting their life.
Right. They can buy something that fits their needs at that point, which is going to just like life insurance. When you're 21 years old, you don't and if you're not married, you probably don't have a need for a big life insurance policy. And later on, those needs change. So I would agree with that completely. What I knew the long knives would be out here very shortly on this. CBO hasn't scored it yet, but I saw where Brookings and some of these other left-leaning think tanks are already screaming that 15 million people are going to lose health care under this plan. I don't know how they arrived at that conclusion, but I suspect there will be fewer people who have insurance because part of the problem is it's not going to be mandated anymore.
Well, that's true, and I think really there's only 9 million they account for the Affordable Care Act. So if they do anything over 9 million, then you're wondering, where are they getting these numbers?
Right.
But listen, there's two portions of this. We talked about it before. It's the individual market. That's the Obamacare exchanges that are collapsing. And then there are the Medicaid expansion. So you've got people trying to get on traditional Medicaid. They can't, but the federal government's funding 90% of people going in the expanded market. That's another big issue. And, did people get covered under Medicaid expansion when the federal government was paying 100%? Yeah.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
But can the federal government continue to afford to pay 100% of the cost of Medicaid expansion in the state of Illinois? I don't think we can. Missouri isn't a Medicaid expansion state. So they're looking at saying, wow, 100%, what are you going to do for us? So we hope to help with disproportionate share hospitals for states that did not expand.
What's your best bet on this when it gets to the Senate? Because I heard Rand Paul and a couple of other senators over there claiming that it's not going to pass the Senate.
Well, I think this is our first stop. So listen, these senators have to understand, if they want to repeal and replace Obamacare, this is our chance. This is it. We don't do this, it's not going to happen. Now, even the stuff that we worked hard to fix and change, I think there's still going to be some moving parts because the bill has to go to the Budget Committee next, and after the Budget Committee, then it goes to the floor. There may be amendments on the floor, and so that package that eventually passes on the floor might look a little bit different than what came out of the Ways and Means and the Energy and Commerce Committee. And if it does, maybe that'll be enough to get the 51 votes we need on the floor.
So I'm going to ask you this question, and I hope it's one you can answer because one of my callers yesterday brought this up. I went to the web page set up by the GOP, and I downloaded the plan, and I read it. And the very first paragraph, if you read it, it calls it an amendment to the Affordable Care Act. And somebody called in here and said, so this doesn't repeal the Affordable Care Act at all. It just adds an amendment to it. Please explain that to people.
Yeah, if I don't know if you've been able to read the bill. If you've read the bill is very difficult to read and understand because it refers to the public health section of the law. So when you write a big bill like they did, ours was about 160 pages, theirs was 2,000. So they were then involved in writing and editing different portions of public health law.
Okay.
So that's where that comes from. We're not going to totally delete the public health law. The question is, how do you go in and remove those things you have to remove? And there's some things we're keeping. But these are things that were Republican positions too. Like if you've got a child who's 26, you can keep them on your insurance. These insurance reforms of we don't want to have capitated amounts. If you buy insurance, should the insurer, once you get sick, say, okay, we paid enough out of this and we're going to pull you off your plan? We don't want to do that. Now, some people would say that's part of Obamacare, which it was because it came into law under that law, even though we supported it also.
Right.
And so that's why there are some things, pre-existing conditions. Do we want people to be able to buy insurance so they have coverage even if they're under pre-existing conditions? The answer is yes. So that's where we got people kind of flustered and confused because there are some things in those policies that we're keeping.
Okay. Well, that explains it, and that's kind of how I suspected it was going to go, but I wasn't able to say it as well as you are, so I'm glad you were able to kind of explain. Because when you download it and read it, I mean, if you've never been through one of these before, it's confusing. It just is.
Oh, well, and that's when I read the first healthcare law. I read it, and every paragraph and semicolon and and all that other stuff, but you can't understand it because it refers. You got to go to other places in the law,
right,
and then insert that in there.
So you consider this a repeal and a replacement of Obamacare, correct?
Yeah, you bet.
Right. Good.
Well, and basically we're going to change the Medicaid expansion, and we're going to drop the Medicare exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two main principles.
Yeah, that's good. Congressman Shimkus, thanks so much for your explanation and your time today, and have a great weekend.
All right, you take care.
We'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Congressman John Shimkus from the 15th District over in Illinois. Hopefully, the caller who called in yesterday, anybody had questions about this, that answered it. I mean, if you go to readthebill.gop, you can look at this. And he's absolutely right. It's not like a proclamation you might see from City Hall that says, whereas we all hated Obamacare, this bill hereby repeals it. That's not how it reads. What Obamacare was something that added amendments and conditions throughout the government to different existing things like the health bill, like different health issues. Different health programs, and what they do is they go in and they repeal those part by part in this 160 pages or so that you can download. So it's confusing to read, but as you just heard the congressman say, he considers it a repeal of Obamacare minus the couple of points he mentioned and a replacement of it. And I think that's important. All right, let me get to a break. We're going to talk to Michael Highsmith from the Show Me Institute up next. You talk a lot about student loan debt. How about student loan debt among our parents? We'll explain in just a minute, but the Show Me Institute's been looking at this issue, and it's a little bigger than you might think. Plus, we'll get to your phone calls, and we'll talk to State Representative Paul Curtman about the bill in Jeff City to prevent this minimum wage hike here in St. Louis.
The Mark Cox Show on FM News Talk 97.1, 98.7, AM 1490, and 97.1talk.com. Dependable weather.
Clouds take control today. Chance of a couple of spotty
With
little...
Fox 2 meteorologist Dave Murray.
Brought to you by Air Comfort Service. Time to get your furnace ready for cool weather. For a furnace tune-up or new furnace estimate, see their specials at aircomfortservice.com.
Down at Naputi Wellness, I've been there a lot of times, right off 55 in Bayless. You go in there, and they will take care of you. They have chiropractic care on site. But what they're really trying to do is look at all of you. They'll do a brain scan. They'll check your blood to make sure your body is in balance, and then they try to repair the things that are causing you pain. That's really the difference. That's kind of what Dr. Eric Naputi set out to do with Naputi Wellness Center. He wanted a place different from all the rest. He tries to take an approach that is free from surgery and drugs. Now, he can also help people who are chronic pain sufferers, because that is leading to a horrible opioid addiction problem in this country. So go see Dr. Naputi, set up a new patient appointment down there, see what they can do for you. So the solution is not always pills. Why not get to the cause of the problem and stop the pain cycle? Here's their website, www.naputiwellnesscenter.com. Again, that's naputiwellnesscenter.com. It's time to put a stop to the chronic pain once and for all.
Another RX Watch brought to you by Onder Law.
If you've been hurt or injured, it's pretty easy to find a law firm.
But if you've been seriously hurt or injured, then you need a law firm with serious medical expertise.
The kind it takes to understand life-changing injuries, no matter what the cause.
You need Onder Law.
They've helped victims in everything from auto and trucking accidents to workplace injuries and consumer product cases.
In 2016 alone, Onder Law won 3 verdicts totaling close to $200 million.
In fact, Onder Law has recovered over $3 billion in a variety of cases with one thing in common: major injuries sustained by victims and their families.
So for whatever reason, if you've been hurt and need help, call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
When it comes to verdicts, they know how to fight and they know how to win.
That's 1-800-RX-WATCH or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Past results afford no guarantee of future results. Every case is different and must be judged on its own merits.